Hi, welcome to the Peach County Podcast. My name is Brady Matthews. I'm the one-time league champion, second or third runner-up last year, and so far best record so far this year. I'm going to move it on to Kobe.
Oh, hi, I'm Kobe.
Noah.
I came in third last year, I think, and I'm in second in the standings right now. So there you go.
Noah.
Hey, what's up? My name's Noah. You can call me Rhino. Um, I'm the first to wear the dress. I'm sure we'll talk about that, and y'all hear that a lot. And I'm currently third in projections, but everyone else says I suck, so we'll see how that goes.
And Aaron.
Well, hello, I'm Aaron. Um, I don't want to really talk about my record right now, but I just like watching sports.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to get to our first topic of the day, and that's predictions for this week. Who we think's going to win, and what we think the games will look like. Starting off, we have the Falcons versus the Cowboys. In that one, I have Cowboys by at least 7-10. I think Dak's going to have a bounce back game after last week against the Broncos. Although I do think Cordell Patterson and Cal Pitts will put up great numbers. Um, but I think the Cowboys will ultimately win, unless Matt Ryan actually decides he wants to win this week. So that's my prediction for that one. Kobe?
Yeah, I'm also going with the Cowboys. I think they're gonna, they have an amazing offense. Especially, it depends. We're gonna have to watch and wait through the week. I think Zeke is dealing with a knee injury, and Dak's been dealing with something for a few weeks, so we're gonna have to see how that plays out. But I definitely have the Cowboys over because Calvin Ridley is MIA, missing an act. So, and aside from that, Matt Ryan only has Kyle Pitts to throw to. So you shut down him. Cordell Patterson isn't really going to be a factor, I don't think. So I have the Cowboys by probably around 9-ish, 10.
Okay, Noah?
I think I'm going to go with the Falcons on this one. Like you said, it's Matt Ryan's game. Did you say it's Matt Ryan's game to lose or Matt Ryan's game to win?
I said that it depends on if Matt Ryan wants to win this week or not.
Oh well, it's definitely Matt Ryan's game to lose for sure. I think that Matt Ryan's playing. He's got to do something. He's got to do something. It's either retirement or getting fired, pretty much at this point. Close game last year. I think they lost. I mean, the Falcons were trash last year, but they lost to a onside kick. I think I'm gonna take Falcons win with a field goal.
Okay, Aaron. I don't know how you're going to top that.
I mean, I think it'll be a close game. Falcons are a bit undermanned compared to the Cowboys. Um, I feel like it might have an upset written on it, but I just feel like the Cowboys will barely pull it out, maybe by probably less than a touchdown, I think. There's too much talent on that team to, I feel, lose a matchup where they can potentially put themselves in a very good position to maintain a high playoff seed.
All right. And
But they
next,
lost. They lost to the Broncos.
that
Like
could
the
have been
Cowboys
just a
lost to the
fluke
Broncos
game.
last week.
Could have just been a
No,
fluke game. I
It was
don't think
one
the
game.
Broncos are going to come out and score 30-0 every game. And the
I
Cowboys have
mean
a
we'll
better
see.
defense than they did last year. I think it was just a fluke game at home. I don't think it should be read
Uh,
into too much. And plus, Dak and Zeke are battling some issues. So, next one on the docket is Jaguars versus Colts. After the Jaguars' performance last week, they show that any given Sunday, a team can win whenever. But I do think, well, I do know that the Colts are the better team. Wentz is playing at a high level. Trevor really hasn't shown why he was taken first overall yet. He's had some nice throws, but he hasn't really popped off the page like quarterbacks of the past. Like the Andrew Lucks, and so I think Pittman has a favorable matchup as well. I think the Jaguars' secondary is not very good. So I think the Colts will basically be able to do whatever they want on offense, and their defense is pretty good. So hopefully, Colts come out on top. I'm saying by double digits at least, probably 14. But it could be a close game if the Jaguars defense steps up like they did against the Bills. So we'll see.
the Colts are definitely winning that game for sure.
So I was going to pick the Jags because I think the Jags are now getting the momentum going. And Carson Wentz has been playing way too good. People are going to forget that he's a bad quarterback until this game.
Yeah.
He's going to go in, throw a couple picks. Josh Allen's going to be in his face all game. Josh Allen just had one of the best games of his young career. Going forward, they're going to try rushing Jonathan Taylor. He's going to fall down to Josh Allen. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win the game by at least 7.
Okay. Noah?
Like I said, the Colts are going to win this game.
Okay, Aaron.
That's simple. That's simple right there.
I'm gonna pick the Colts to win. I don't think it'll be by a whole ton, but the Colts are in a position to prove that they have a chance to make the playoffs. This is like a sort of like a do or die. We need to keep on showing our momentum going forward, and I just can't pick. I don't feel like the Jaguars have what it takes to beat the Colts.
Okay, keep in mind the line is 10.5 towards the Colts. So they're favored to win by 10.5 points. So on to the next game. It's Browns versus Patriots. This is a very pivotal AFC matchup that we might see in the playoffs if the Patriots can continue their success. And as of right now, I think I'm going to go with the Browns. I know that their backfield is kind of destroyed with COVID and injuries, but Dearness Johnson showed great flashes when he came in for Chubb and Kareem when they were out for injuries. So I think that he can carry the load. Really, it just depends on how Baker plays. If Baker can look like he did last week and keep the offense at an elevated level without OBJ now, who has looked like a cancer on that team. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they play better without him. And if they can keep it going and Donovan Peoples-Jones steps up and becomes their true wide receiver too, I think they have a very good chance to win this game. But the Patriots still also have Bill Belichick. You know that defense is going to be good. You know they're going to focus on stopping the rush. And if Mac Jones can play conservative, protect the ball, not try to injure defensive linemen, and just throw maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns, I think the Patriots could easily win this too. I think it's more of a toss-up, but I'm going to lean with the Browns right now just because I think they have more talent. But obviously not better coaching. I'm saying Browns by 3.
I was going to pick a similar. I was also going to say Browns by 3 for different reasons, though. I think Myles Garrett is going to have his way with that New England line. And Mac Jones back there just put a target on his back a few weeks ago with that, dirty thing with Brian Burns. So I'm assuming Myles Garrett's got something, coming up there. And it's not like New England has the best offense to begin with anyway. And they're going to try to establish the run early. And they're going to try to take away the best player, which I'm assuming Belichick will focus on Baker more than Dearness, the third-string running back. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I got Browns by 3.
Okay.
I'm also going to choose the Browns, but I think I'm going to take a little more. You are given like by 3 points, something like that. I think the Browns are going to wipe the floor with them. I think it's going to be like a 40-point to 20-point game. I think Baker Mayfield needs to step up. He needs to show that he's not the problem. That video that OBJ's dad released was really just kind of, you could see the problem there. The Browns defense looking great. New England is just not, especially with Damian Harris and their other running back. I think, is it Ramon Stevenson, something like
Stevenson
that?
and Bolden.
Yeah, and I mean, they're both out. We're waiting to see if they play. There goes the run game. I think it's just going to be not good for the Patriots on Sunday.
All right, Aaron.
I guess I'm going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to pick the Patriots to win. Because if you look at the division currently, the Bills are starting to fade a little bit. They're struggling some. The Patriots are currently, I think it's only like a game to a game and a half back on the Bills. If they win this week, they're putting themselves in a very good position to possibly take the division from the Bills and have that advantage when it comes playoff time. And it's Bill Belichick. When there's a game he needs to win to have a chance to go forward, he will. Almost 90% of the time he's going to win that game. So I feel like the Patriots will pull it out. It may not be a very sexy team, but I got the Patriots.
And just a reminder, the Patriots are favored by 2.5 points in that game.
Yeah, that's the line.
So, then we move on to Bills and Jets. I mean, it's the Jets. If they start Mike White, they might have a fighting chance. I don't know if he's come back from injury yet or not.
I think they said they're starting him.
Huh? They are starting him?
No matter if
believe
he's
so.
injured or not.
Okay. But even then, the Bills have arguably the best defense in the NFL. And the Jets are just a dumpster fire of an organization. And they don't have much offensive weapons. I know Elijah Moore stepped up last week, but I don't think he's going to be able to consistently get 2 touchdowns, mainly because those were all in garbage time. And that score last week made it look a lot closer than the game actually was. So I'm saying Bills bounce back after a weird loss last week to the Jags. Probably put up 40 on the Jets. I don't think the Jets score more than 14, unless Mike White proves that he is the next coming of God. So yeah, I'm gonna go Bills by at least 20.
I'm gonna pick the Bills as well. Definitely, nobody's I don't think anyone's going to this game gonna pick the Jets. They're 2-6 right now, basically bottom feeders. They can't figure out what's going on at quarterback. They all come in and play good, but they all come in and lose too. So what's the point? I think Dawson Knox returning is going to have a bigger impact on the Bills' offense in the red zone. They kind of struggled last week against the Jaguars because of that, I think. So with Josh Allen, he's also on a revenge game after losing to the Jags. So I got Bills by 14.
So I like how nobody's mentioned that the Bills in back-to-back weeks almost lost to the Miami Dolphins and just lost to the Jaguars. They've been playing down so hard to their opponents. I still think they're going to win because it's the Jets, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than some people think it's going to be.
Okay, Aaron.
I'm gonna pick the Bills, obviously, but you gotta also keep in mind that for some reason, the Jets, when it's an AFC front runner they're playing, have the games of their lives. So I wouldn't completely count out the Jets. I feel like it might be a little bit closer than a lot of score projections might project to be, but the Bills will win it.
And the line on that one is plus 12 for the Bills. So
And for that too, what has the Bills scored the past 2 weeks? They scored 6 last week. What did they score the week
26.
before with the Dolphins? 26. So I mean,
Beat them 26 to
Okay.
11. That score also was not indicative of how the game was. The Bills had
no, for sure.
handedly won that game.
The Bills what?
Handedly won that game. It was final score really didn't mean much in that game, in my opinion.
Didn't they? The Dolphins did really good though at the beginning, didn't they?
They played better, but I mean, I don't think they did anything worth noting. And then we move
Okay,
on
cool.
to Lions versus Steelers, which this is my upset pick of the week. I have the Lions beating the Steelers. Dan Campbell's just itching for a win, and he deserves one. He's probably my favorite coach in the league right now. I love how he treats his players. I love how that city's kind of came behind him and really made him the focal point of Detroit. So I know they're 0-8. I know the Steelers just came off a big win on Thursday night, but you're not always going to have the refs on your side. So I'm going to take the Lions, squeak it out by 7. It's going to be a dirty game. It's going to be very boring. I don't see there being more than 20 points apiece, or it turns into a complete offensive blowout. And so yeah, I'm just going to pick the Lions by 7, although I do think Najee goes off.
I'm also going to pick the Lions. I think Dan Campbell looked at his schedule at the beginning of the year and was like, yeah, we may not win many games, but this is one we can pencil in. You got Big Ben throwing like he's a geriatric over there. You got Claypool potentially out for a long time. I haven't seen the injury report. So there's a lot of things going wrong. And that, again, they almost lost to the Chicago Bears last week with a rookie quarterback starting. So without the refs in that game, I don't think that is not even as close. And, they had a pick six and there was a lot of stuff going on. So I'm definitely think the Lions have a chance this time, and I think they're going to pull it out. I got Lions by 3.
Guys, y'all were talking about Jared Goff. Jared Goff playing the Steelers defense. I see it being close. I don't see it being a blowout whatsoever. I just don't know. The Steelers defense, I just think I think they're better than what Jared Goff can do. I don't think this is going to be an easy win whatsoever if the Lions do win. I'm trying to pull up and see how many points they've allowed over the couple of weeks. I don't know what the Lions defense has been doing.
They did just give up 44 to the Eagles, I think, 2 weeks ago.
38, 28, 34. I mean, they've allowed at least 20 points every single game, which is not good. I think the Steelers are going to get this one. I don't think they can pencil this one in.
Okay. Aaron?
I'm gonna go Lions, simply because I've watched the whole game Monday night, pretty much, and what I saw from the Steelers was very vomit-inducing. Watching that offense, and to see a team that really didn't deserve to win that game win the game. I see a team in Detroit that's really hungry for that win, that deserves a win at some point, how hard they fought, pulling it out against the Steelers, and somewhat diminishing the Steelers' standing in their division currently.
All right. And the line for that one is 8 for the Steelers.
Yeah.
So then we move on to the Saints and Titans. The Titans are a weird team to me because honestly they should not be playing as well as they are. They lost Derrick Henry, but then they beat my favorite team in the NFL. Well, not my favorite team in the NFL, my favorite team this season in the NFL. In terms of I think that the Rams are the best team in the NFL, especially now that they got OBJ and Von Miller. But neither of those players played against the Titans. And the Titans arguably have the best resume in the NFL right now. I mean, they've beaten the top teams in each division, and there's no one that really even comes close to them. The Saints just lost to the Falcons in a shootout, but I think Derrick Henry not being there will catch up with the Titans sooner than later. I don't think they can always just go off of those little dink and dunk high percentage passes that Tannehill has been throwing. So unless Julio or A.J. Brown steps up, I'm going to pick the Saints. And I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be decided on a field goal, probably into regulation. But I'm going to pick the Saints by around 3-7. Hopefully Kamara has a bounce back game.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning Titans for this one, simply because I think Kamara is dealing with some injuries right now. You don't really know who's going to be the quarterback going forward. They could pull out Seaman anytime and put in Taysom Hill, which will obviously, it'll be a different spark to the offense, but it's a spark that no one else is going to ignite. There's no receivers on that team. Michael Thomas is done. Not a lot to look forward to. They're one of the best or the worst 5-3 teams I've ever seen, personally. 4-4 in their division, I think. And the Titans have just found a way to win every single week. I think they're going to find another way to win this week, whether it's AP going out there or Jeremy McNichols or just Tannehill just having the best game of the season. I got Titans by 6.
But that defense, though, the Saints' defense, what did they pick off Brady how many times? Was it at least 2 this past 2 weeks ago, week?
Yeah, but
Pick 6.
They also just gave up 27 points to the Falcons.
Well, sometimes you just got to take what you can get. Like I said, Matt Ryan's game to win this week or to lose. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, even with saying that, I think the Titans are gonna win that one. Ryan Tannehill is playing too good, even without Derrick Henry. Still has A.J. Brown. Maybe Julio will be back soon. Who knows? I think it's gonna be close. I think Titans by a touchdown.
To me, I feel like this game has a trap game written all over it for the Titans. The Titans have been very, exceeding their expectations to an extent recently. And I feel like this Titans team lost to the Jets earlier this season, I think. So they have a history of sometimes playing down and being inconsistent. And while this seems like a slam dunk game for the Titans, I just have a feeling that the Saints are going to pull it out.
Okay. And the
They
line
did
for
lose
that
to the
game-
Jets.
They did lose the Jets. That is true, but they've also
in
beaten
overtime.
the best teams in the NFL.
I think they
Um,
lost to the Cardinals and the Jets this year.
The line for that one is Tennessee by 3. So, moving on to Buccaneers versus Washington. I think it's going to be a close game for the very beginning, and then I think it's going to become a blowout. I think Washington's defense isn't near what it was last year for some reason, and Tom Brady's going to absolutely torch them. I'm seeing 4 to 5 touchdowns from Tom Brady, and I don't really see Heineken keeping up. So I'm going to take Buccaneers by 14. But this also could be a trap game because Washington is coming off a bye. They may have fixed some stuff for their defense. They really needed that bye. And maybe Gibson could come back and actually do something meaningful. But as of right now, I'm taking Buccaneers in a blowout.
I was also going to go with Bucks, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than even the line says, simply due to the fact that the Buccaneers are decimated on offense. Right now, like Chris Godwin didn't practice today. AB is already out. AB may not come back for a couple weeks. Gronk is out. Like, who is Tom Brady going to throw those 4 or 5 touchdowns to, you know? Mike Evans could have a big day, depends. But he's also going to be lined up, I'm assuming, on their number 1 corner on the Washington football team. So, and that defense, while it hasn't performed this year, it's still nothing to scoff at. So I'm assuming it's going to be Bucks by, I'd say 6.
Yeah,
2
if they,
field goals.
You know,
if they can get if they can actually get the pressure they're supposed to get with Montrez Sweat, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, then it could be a long game for Brady. But I just don't see that happening.
With what Kobe said, I think Mike Evans is a lot better than Julian Edelman, and Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with him. I don't know what you're going to do about Tom Brady. I think he's the MVP this year. He's 43. He's got 4 games with 4+ touchdowns. That's ridiculous. I think it's going to be a blowout in Washington. There's nothing they can do.
Really ain't much to this one in terms of picking, I guess. It's pretty simple. Tampa Bay. I mean, Washington could make it close. They have kind of underperformed this season, but I mean, it's pretty simple. It's Tom Brady. Kind of another prove game, it's pretty simple. Bucks.
Okay. All right. So next on the docket. Oh, and the line for that one was Buccaneers by 9.5. Yeah, Buccaneers by 9.5. And next is Panthers versus Cardinals. If Kyler comes back, I see this game being a little bit closer, honestly, because Carolina's defense is immaculate, and without having that much mystery at quarterback and what their schemes are going to be and stuff like that, the Panthers can very much prepare better for the Cardinals. But that being said, I think the Cardinals are going to win, probably pretty handily. But yeah, I think the Cardinals are still going to win. But Panthers should put up a fight. Hopefully their offense can get off the ground now that, Sam Darnold is out. CMC is back, albeit for how long, we don't know. DJ Moore has been in a little bit of a funk, but hopefully that'll turn around as well. And they just signed Cam Newton, so maybe PJ Walker played the game of his life to show they didn't need Cam. But, like I said, I'm going with Cardinals by 7.
This is a tough matchup, I think. Without knowing whether Kyler is going to start, this is going to be a tough one to pick. I think I'm going to lean Carolina, which is, crazy. But I think that's with CMC coming back, I think he can run all over him. The Cardinals are actually beat up on defense pretty bad. They had a bunch of players that didn't practice today. Buda Baker, Chase Edmonds didn't practice. Hopkins didn't practice. Rondell Moore didn't practice. Kyler didn't practice. Like, they're beat up on defense and offense. They're just beat up in general. So the only real players I could see that Carolina is missing would be Brian Burns potentially and Sam Darnold. And depending on who you like, what kind of stats you listen to, Sam Darnold has not been the best quarterback. So PJ Walker can only make it go up from here. So I think PJ Walker proves himself, and I would say Carolina wins by 7.
Yeah, I'm going with the Cardinals, with or without Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy showed that he can be a quarterback, at least in one game. Uh, he was 22 for 26, 249 yards and a touchdown. James Conner got 3 more of those in the between 5 yards. I mean, uh, I think it's going to be a Cardinals win, regardless of who plays. I mean, it's just what I think.
I would hope that the Cardinals don't tend to relive their history in the past where they've gotten off to a hot start and kind of fizzled out as the season progresses. That's kind of a concern, but I really just can't pick against that offense, regardless of who's at quarterback. I mean, they proved that Colt McCoy can step in and they can still be about just as decent without Kyler on the field as they were with him. So I mean, yeah, I have to pick the Cardinals here. The Panthers might make it close, but Cardinals.
All right, and the line for that one was 10.5 for the Cardinals. Next game is the Vikings and Chargers. The Vikings will be on the road going to Los Angeles. And in this one, it's really a toss-up for me. Both teams' offenses look good. Obviously, the Vikings run more of a archaic offense, it feels like. And Mike Zimmerman should not be their head coach. But Kirk has been great this season, almost playing an elite level. But that hasn't translated to a lot of wins. So, outside of that, Justin Herbert has also looked really good, and that has translated to wins. They're 5-3, and they're in a very, very hard fight for the AFC West. But that being said, I'm seeing the Vikings winning this. Kind of a trap game for the Chargers. I think Dalvin kind of goes off. I think Kirk throws at least 2 touchdowns, one of them being to Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings by 7.
I'm going to pick the Vikings as well. I think they still think that they are competitive and they can make a playoff push. And looking at the division, I think they're second in the division right now, even at 3-5. And there's a couple of games they know they should have won, like the Cowboys game. They should have won that close game. It was a dogfight by both teams. So I think the Vikings are better than their record suggests. And I think their offense will come to play Sunday. So I got the Vikings by 3.
I think the Vikings are also going to win. The Chargers have just kind of been in a slump. I know they beat the Eagles last week, but it's the Eagle. Did Darius Slay play last week?
For the Eagles?
Plays
for the Eagles. That's what I said. Did he play last week or was he
I
hurt?
don't know if he played last week.
I'll find out in a minute.
Anyways, it's going to be a close match for sure. But with Kirk and Dalvin Cook, I think they just have, and Justin Jefferson, I think the Vikings have more weapons on offense. So I'd say it's probably a touchdown or a field goal to the Vikings.
I mean,
He did play last week.
He did play or didn't?
He did. He played 64% of the snaps.
Okay, cool.
I mean, this is a matchup between two teams that are notorious for choking when it matters. But I just feel like it's a Vikings get right moment, and I feel like the Vikings will pull it out. They've had some rough weeks recently. Chargers have too, but I feel like the Vikings might want it a little bit more. And the Chargers' run defense is suspect, so Dalvin Cook should have a very good day.
All right. So, and the line for that one is 3 to the Chargers. So we'll be moving on to the Eagles versus Broncos. Broncos just put up a good game last week, but I think that was a fluke, like I said earlier. And Eagles looked good last week. Not great. They haven't looked great all season. They've just kind of been surviving, and somehow that's translated into 3 wins for them. And the Broncos defense looks just as good as it has all season, making the Cowboys put up 0 points. So I'm probably going to take the Broncos at home. Line says 2.5, but I'm saying it's going to be by at least 10 because I just don't think the Eagles can get their offense off the ground. And yeah, but I do think Jalen Hurts will run for at least one touchdown, at least. Teddy B looked good last week too, so I'm still going to say Broncos by 10.
Yeah, I'm also going to pick the Broncos. I just think the Eagles have been they've looked too competent on offense for the past couple of weeks. So I think that's going to come crashing down Sunday, especially against a real defense in Denver with their additions this offseason. And so I got the Denver Broncos by 7.
I just think the Denver Broncos are the most mediocre team in the NFL. They somehow trade away their best players and they still win games. I don't know how it works. Even without Von Miller, their defense looks good. Jerry Judy's back. I think the Broncos will pull it out just because the Eagles haven't looked good this season. I think Broncos by a field goal. I mean, field goal like a touchdown. It'll be close.
This is kind of a tough matchup to pick. I feel like because the Eagles certainly could have a good week this week. Broncos sometimes tend to play down to weaker opponents, but they also have a tendency also to sometimes beat up on them. So I'm tempted to say Broncos. I mean, their offense is kind of vomit-inducing also, just like Pittsburgh's. But the Broncos have something to prove right now. They're trying to prove that they can make it, and I don't think the Eagles have what it takes.
Zach, would you like to add anything since you just joined?
No, I'm good. I don't think. I mean, I haven't been keeping up enough with the Broncos to make an informed decision.
Fair enough. All right, and the line for that one was 2.5 towards Denver. Probably just because of what they did last week. Honestly, for me, it's a even line, but regardless. Moving on, next is Seahawks at the Packers. This is a big game. Russell Wilson's coming back, A-Rod's coming back, and A-Rod's pissed. So I think Aaron Rodgers goes out there, slings 3 to 4 touchdowns. Russ does 2. He slings 2 to 3. Hopefully that gets Devontae Adams back on track for the season. Aaron Jones as well. A.J. Dillon looks good, being the main rusher on the offense. And I think DK has a sneaky good game as well. But really it's going to be which defense steps up first, and I do think that's going to be the Packers, because the Packers defense looked great last week against the Chiefs, given the Chiefs have been, kind of crap this season. But they did step up. I think they held them to 13 points with a rookie quarterback playing for them, so it's not like they had, people to stop. They had, long drives or anything. I think they had, maybe 1 or 2. So I do think the Packers will win this one. I think it'll be close. It's going to be a cold game. It's going to be 37 degrees, potential for snow. And that's where Aaron Rodgers thrives. So, yeah, I'm going to choose Packers by 7.
Let's see. With the inclination or the idea that Aaron Rodgers is playing Sunday, we're gonna have to see. And I don't think he's either eligible to practice until Saturday. So he already stated that there's a pretty good chance he plays, but it's not 100% chance. So if he goes through the walkthrough Saturday and everything goes good, I'm assuming he's gonna play. So I would definitely have to pick the Packers in that case, because like you said, Aaron Rodgers had a week off to kind of study for the Seahawks defense and get ready for it mentally. And their defense just played lights out last week against Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. And Russell's coming off injury. You don't know how that finger's going to, mess him up in the game going forward. And so I would have to pick the Green Bay by 10.
Russell Wilson is back. That's all I have to say about that. Aaron Rodgers he might be coming back, but he's got a lot of things going through his head. We don't know how that's going to affect him. Russell Wilson hasn't missed a game He hasn't missed a game. He just missed 2 weeks, 3 weeks, including the bye. I think he's going to be on fire Sunday. I think he's gonna remember how much he misses football, and we'll just have to see how it goes. I think it'll be really close. Even with Russell Wilson coming back and Chris Carson possibly coming back, I still think the Packers are probably going to win just because their defense is doing pretty good. It's going to be a high-scoring game for sure.
This is pretty easy for me. It's Green Bay and Lambeau. Regardless of which quarterback's starting, I'm taking the Packers.
All right, Zach, would you like to add anything to that one?
Yeah, I also agree with everybody except Noah. With the Packers, gonna take the dub. Like you said earlier, I think it is gonna be the first defense because both are pretty high-powered offenses, and yeah, I guess it gets cold in Seattle, I guess, but it doesn't get, I guess, Wisconsin cold. So
Hey, I said the
Wisconsin cold's
Packers
a
were going to
different breed.
win.
oh,
I said the Packers were
Yeah,
going to
but
win.
Zach
I
just
didn't
hates
say I
you.
didn't take anything away.
He disagrees with
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay.
All right, so the
I
line
bet.
for
We'll
Gassing
see.
up Russ, too.
We'll see when Russell Wilson has 5 touchdowns.
the line for that game is 3.5 towards Green Bay. So
3.5.
3.5.
I think I would take the line. Pretty easy.
Next
I don't
game on the
understand
docket.
betting.
This is Sunday Night Football. It's Chiefs versus Raiders. Chiefs at Raiders, I should say. Mahomes just hasn't looked that great this season. The whole Kansas City offense hasn't looked great. They can't get a running game established. They held their own, I guess, last week against the Packers, but the Packers didn't have A-Rod. And they're going to Las Vegas. It's really going to be dependent on if their offense can produce or not. And right now, I don't know if they can. But on the other side, the Raiders just lost Henry Ruggs and another wide receiver. Their number one wide receiver right now, I think, is Brian Edwards, who was actually taken in the same draft class as Henry Ruggs. I don't know if Waller's back yet or not. And
He's back.
I don't know if Derek Carr is going to be able to carry that offense against the Chiefs. But also, the Chiefs' defense is horrible. So maybe if Sorensen picks it up this week and actually learns how to defend, or at least how Tyrann Mathieu wants him to defend, the Chiefs can stop him. But as of right now, I'm probably going to take the Chiefs. But it's going to be a bad game, I think. I think it's going to be just two offenses that are trying to look for a rhythm. Really, the Raiders, just because they don't have most of their players on offense anymore. I mean, Josh Jacobs is coming back, but I don't think you can just lean on him all game, especially against the Chiefs, because the Chiefs eventually are gonna pop off. Like they're gonna get back in their groove, and it may be this game, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna take Chiefs by 3.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to call the Raiders by 3, simply because I think the Raiders are a more complete team than the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs have no offensive line. They didn't really set up themselves in the offseason to be successful. They went out and their biggest acquisition was what? Josh Gordon?
Orlando Brown.
Like their offense.
They did trade for Orlando Brown, the left tackle from the Ravens.
All right, but their line is still not holding up against a real NFL defense. I think Josh Jacobs probably runs all over him if he can stay healthy. Derek Carr can always sling it to Waller. I got Raiders by 3.
The Raiders are killers, figuratively and literally. Derek is slinging the ball this year. I think Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is going to win the game for him. The Chiefs are on a downhill slope. They're going to have to pick it up. It might be the game they pick it up, but I don't think it is. I got Raiders by 2 touchdowns.
Also, don't forget that the Raiders were homophobic and racist before they fired John Gruden. So, Aaron?
Nothing I've really seen from the Chiefs has really outright impressed me. I feel like most of the leagues kind of figured them out. They don't really have like a secondary playmaker on the outside besides Tyreek to take the pressure off of Tyreek, and then Kelsey to an extent. Um, Mahomes has had kind of some issues in terms of accuracy and turnover ratio and all that. Uh, and the Raiders are kind of an underrated team. I mean, the offense may not every week be a very sexy and high-powered offense, but they tend to sometimes get the job done. The Raiders have an underrated pass rush led by Max Crosby, and I feel like the Raiders will pull this one out. It may not be a very high scoring game. I think it'll actually be a little bit lower of a scoring game, but the Chiefs defense is just too bad, and the Raiders are just more of a solid team, so I feel like the Raiders pull it out.
Zach?
Yeah. I don't know if he still is, but wasn't Derek Carr like leading the league in passing yards or something like that early in the season?
He was earlier, but he's not now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the Raiders are going to pull it out because the Chiefs defense is just pretty horrendous. And like we've been seeing, they're kind of in a little slump. So yeah, I would think I got Raiders by 10.
And the line for that game has the Raiders favorited by 2.5. So, moving on to Monday Night Football. This week it's going to be Rams at 49ers. I think that's game of the week as of right now. Rams are favored by 4. And honestly, I think they should be favored by more. Did we lose Aaron? Oh, no,
I'm still
Noah.
here.
Did we lose Noah?
We just lost video on
No,
them.
just went off video.
Just keep
He's
going.
back.
There he
I'm not on my
Okay.
I'm not on my phone. I'm not on my computers like y'all.
So, it's going to be Rams at 49ers. Rams just suffered a weird loss last week. They couldn't get their offense off the ground. I don't think that happens for a second straight week, especially since Von Miller is probably going to be playing this game. Matt Stafford's looked great all season. He's leading the league in passing. And Cooper Kupp obviously has looked amazing. Way better than anyone could have imagined. He's on pace to break so many records as a slot 5'10" wide receiver. So I think the 49ers looked really bad last week against the Cardinals. They gave up 31, and James Conner lit them up. And the 49ers offense looked horrible outside of Kittle and Ayuk. So yeah, I'm going to take the Rams, and I really don't think it's going to be close. Probably 17 points. But yeah, I'm just going to take the Rams 17 points.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick the Rams. I don't think Odell is playing or even getting anything done Monday, but they still have Robert Woods. They still have Cooper Kupp. Assuming Matt Stafford's fine, like he seems to be by all indications, and they should eat that week. So I'm going to take the Rams by 10.
I'd say the Rams are going to win this game for sure. They have all the offensive weapons. The 49ers, their offense is just it might be stepping up a little bit, especially since they're starting to use Ayuk. Kittle comes back, but their defense is just I don't know how well their defense has been playing this year, but I guess it's kind of mediocre. I think the Rams are going to win this by at least 2 touchdowns for sure.
I don't really feel like there's much to this one. I mean, it'd be a very sizable Rams win. They might have a chance to use their new toy they just acquired today, an Odell. And if that's the case, if he does play, it just further adds to the weapons that they already have. I mean, you got Kupp, you got Woods, you got Higbee, you got Odell, you got Darrell Henderson. How are you going to stop that? And I don't think the 49ers have what it takes to stop that, so the Rams win, even in San Francisco.
Zach?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, when you trade, would they trade like their second and third round pick next year? Is that right?
I
For
don't know.
Von Miller?
I'm not sure.
Oh no,
I know it was the second round pick though.
I think I don't know. They're going all in. They're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. So, but yeah, I think the offense is too good, and the defense, in terms of just big names, their defense is pretty immaculate. That doesn't necessarily relate to performance, but yeah, Rams victory pretty easily, probably by I'd say at least 14.
It was their second and third round pick. You were exactly right, Jack.
Thank you.
So moving on, we're actually going to get into fantasy now. I asked everyone to predict 3 boom players for fantasy this week, and we'll start with me and then with Zach. So for this week, I have Cordell Patterson versus the Cowboys. I think he puts up another weird stat line like he's been doing all season somehow. I think he scores at least 22, 23 points in PPR. Has a touchdown or 2 because he's a wide receiver at running back. I mean, they play him like a wide receiver. He comes out of the backfield and receives as well. He also takes some rushes, and so yeah, I do think that he's going to go off. And then my second one is Zeke versus Atlanta. Atlanta has a horrifically bad run defense. Cowboys have a good offensive line. After last week, I think they're going to be leaning on the run even more. I could see Zeke putting up 150 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I'd say Zeke's floor this week probably about 15. Ceiling anywhere upwards of that, even to 40. And then for the last one, I do have Najee versus Detroit. I did pick the Lions to beat the Steelers this week, but I still think that Najee will have a hell of a game because with Claypool potentially missing time, that means that their starting wide receivers are going to be Deontay Johnson, Ray McLeod, and James Washington, and that's just not a good wide receiving core at that point. So they're going to lean on Deontay and Najee a lot, and I think Najee will get at least 1 rushing touchdown, maybe 1 receiving touchdown, getting around 20-ish points.
So for my first boom player of the week, I got. Let me look over here. I got it over here. I've got DJ Moore with PJ Walker starting, simply because last season when PJ Walker started against the Lions, DJ Moore had 11 targets to the tune of 7 receptions, 127 yards, and 21.8 fantasy points. So with PJ Moore only targeting, he threw some good balls to Robbie Anderson that week as well. But with with PJ Walker only targeting DJ Moore, essentially, and him being the number 1 alpha dog in that offense, I think DJ Moore's in tune for a big week this week. My second player, which is kind of be interesting to watch, is Stephon Diggs, simply because last year in the 2 games they played the Jets, he had 20 targets over the course of those 2 games, which is around 10 targets a game. And with that many targets, the production is surely to come. I think he averaged around 14 or 15 last year against the Jets. So nothing crazy, but a few touchdowns, something that could change. And they have Dawson Knox returning, so they're going to be better, stretching the field. They have more weapons, so Stephon Diggs could definitely be in line for a few more touchdowns for a bounce-back game from Josh Allen. And my third player that I picked was owned in 1.4% of fantasy leagues, actually. He was Tyler Johnson for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said earlier, the Bucs are beat up on offense. Chris Godwin hasn't practiced. They signed Rashad Perryman to maybe fill in that role if Chris Godwin can't go. And they've had Tyler Johnson over the course of a few weeks filling in for Antonio Brown. And last week he had his best game of the season, which was 6 targets for 65 yards, I think, and 11.5 fantasy points, which is fine for a flex. But if they have no one else to throw to come Sunday, it's going to be him and the Mike Evans show all game. So I think that's a sneaky little pickup you could do and slot in. I haven't owned in most of my leagues. So I forgot Gronk is out.
Really? I think my first, what are we doing? Breakout player? Or are we doing just talking about fantasy?
Your top 3 players of the week.
Top 3 players of the week. I think Michael Pittman is going to have a really good week against the Jaguars. I think that game's going to be. It's not going to be a close game, but it's going to be close enough to force the Colts to keep throwing the ball. So I think he's going to have at least 2 touchdowns most likely before the end of the night. I'd say my second pick of the week, Tom Brady against Washington. I think I think he's going to do great against there again. Probably four touchdowns. Even though, especially since they don't really have, they are missing a little bit of their players, but he finds a way anyway. I'd say my third player of the week. I think Darren Waller's going to have a really good week. I think it's his time to step up. He's pretty much wide receiver 1, and in Raiders on the Raiders playing against a mediocre Chiefs defense. And I think Derek Carr is going to find a way to win that game, and I think the way to win that game is Darren Waller. So I think those are my top 3 players of the week.
My first boom candidate, I feel, is going to be Josh Jacobs. He's kind of been held back in part because of small minor injuries that just did time. But otherwise he probably would have had 8 to 10 more points possibly. So, and you're playing Kansas City, a soft run defense, primetime game. He wants to show out. It could be a trendy pick. Then we got Terry McLaurin against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay's got injuries in their secondary, soft secondary versus their front 7. He's had a tough set of weeks recently with limited receptions and busts overall. Might be his time to get right against a NFC contender. And then Michael Pittman against the Jags. Jags are a team that are still trying to figure out who they are, what their identity is, and Pittman has been pretty reliable as a kind of objective boom candidate. So I feel like Pittman has a good week again and justifies being a boom player.
Zach? Zach?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted my mic. That's my bad. Did Noah say Michael Pittman too? Because I came back to my headset.
Yeah, you can say the same players. It's not that big of a deal.
I was just gonna say that's good for me because I'm starting them this week. So
Aaron
But-
said Michael Pittman too.
I got for number 1, I think Dak's gonna eat against the Atlanta's defense, and because Atlanta's just pretty horrendous overall, and so hopefully he'll put up 34 points. Then, or number 2, he's been improving it time and time again. Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's playing the Jags. They don't have a very good defense, not a very good team. And he put up 34 last week against the Jets. So, I think he'll probably hit like I don't know, 28 to 32 bomb, something like that. And then I think Derek Henry, no, I'm just playing. I think Dalvin's going to produce against a weak Chargers run defense.
All right. Okay, cool. So let's take a little break. I'm gonna go to the bathroom right quick. Next one we'll do is your buy, hold, and sell players. So I'm gonna go to the restroom right quick. So I'll be back in just a minute. Going into the next topic for fantasy, we have everyone chooses a player to buy, hold, or sell. I'll start off. I said to buy Saquon. He's coming off of that injury, obviously, but he has a very favorable matchup for fantasy playoffs. He's got the bye week this week to give him extra rest. And when he comes back, and if he's fully healthy, everyone knows he's a top 5 player in fantasy. Arguably right behind CMC. But his injury concerns are his biggest issue. So if you're going to buy him, I recommend you have some depth. really, to buy Saquon, really you need to be a playoff team at this point. You need to know that you're going to the playoffs, and because if you can get in the playoffs with him, and he stays healthy, smooth sailing. And then for hold, I said hold on to Pitts, Kyle Pitts. Atlanta's offense looks like it's starting to pick up a little bit. Matt Ryan's been playing pretty decent. He's getting his targets with Calvin Ridley being MIA, not knowing when he's going to come back from his depression. Pitts is arguably their wide receiver one, right beside, strange enough, Cordero Patterson. So I would hold on to Pitts. I know he had a couple of dud weeks the last 2 weeks, but things will look up for him. And then to sell, I said sell Alvin Kamara. With his injuries and the instability at quarterback, and now Mark Ingram in the backfield, it's just going to be, he's not going to get the receptions that he needs or that he was having like he was last year. And he's just not going to get the touches that he requires. And even if he does, it's not like the defense isn't expecting Kamara to get the ball because they have Seaman at quarterback. So those are my buy, hold, and sells, and then I'll move it on to Kobe.
Okay, first off, I did this in kind of I guess I did in order. I did my buy, who I think is an extremely buy low candidate, is Melvin Gordon, running back for the Denver Broncos. Because a lot of people are going to look at Javonte running for 117 yards last week, who he splits carries with, and say that was, that was a sign of things to come. But just looking at the stats, they just don't agree with that. The Broncos were in a blowout all week. Of course, they would use their backup running back more. Melvin Gordon got a touchdown that last week. Right now, he's sitting at RB 15 on the year. So right outside the top 12 RBs, he's extremely consistent. And with Judy coming back, the last 2 games, he put up 19 and 17.5 fantasy points. So with Judy's there and the ball is moving, Melvin Gordon gets more and more points. And as for his production versus Javonte, he has 6 touchdowns versus 2 touchdowns. He has 1 less target, actually, in the running back targets. He has 25 targets, which is still fine. So almost 50-50 split there. But in the red zone, they obviously know who they're going to use. And in close games, Melvin Gordon's going to be the back you want. And right now, Javonte's just not ready. So my buy low would be definitely Melvin Gordon. My hold would be Terry McLaurin because, last week he did not have the best game. And with the instability at quarterback, anything could happen any given week. However, he's still averaging 9.5 targets a game. He's obviously the clear wide receiver one on that team. Going forward, he's going to be better. I think Fitzpatrick's coming back eventually, so that should lead for more targets, more meaningful receptions for him. So that's who I would hold. For sell, right now I've got Brandon Ayuk. He's had 2 good games. I don't know really what you can get for him right now. It's not much. I assume he doesn't have much value, but he's had 2 good games. One where it kind of looked like he was outpacing Devo a little bit. So I think now is the perfect time to sell one of the defenses stop. Like they shift back to being able to guard anybody. Right now I think they're just singularly covering Devo and not really caring, just letting Ayuk do what he does because it doesn't really cost him games. So when that gets back fixed, I assume Devo will be much more valuable, and you should sell Ayuk for anything while he still has value because he's going to go back to his old ways.
So you got Cubs. For my buy, I'm going to agree with Brady with Saquon. I think he's a great. You're going to buy him low at the moment just because some of the managers are probably fed up with him with whoever has him. I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to be just as good as he was. I think it can be it's a little iffy if the Giants are out of playoff contention, depending on if they want to sit him or if they're going to play him. But if you have the depth and you can wait on him and you can get him for not a lot, I think he's definitely worth it. Another buy for me would be James Robinson, just because he's also probably, with his injury, he might be selling a little low right now. I'd say my hold is CMC, Christian McCaffrey. If you haven't sold him by now, you definitely hold him. Or if you Yeah, I think you hold him at this point. He's either screwed your season or not. And he's back. Cam just came back. Um, last time Cam was there, Christian McCaffrey had 1,000-yard rushing and receiving season with 15 touchdowns. So we'll just have to see how they mesh. Cam is a little different than he was 2 years ago, but we'll just have to see. For my sell, I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek is not the player you drafted him as, depending on where you drafted him. Personally, I have him on my team. I drafted him 11th overall, and I have sold him. He's not the same. He doesn't have the same consistency. He'll put up 27 one week. 2 weeks ago, he put up 27. Then he put up 9 the next. The Chiefs are just very iffy, and I did not feel comfortable having him on my team anymore. I think if you can sell high on him and get pretty good, consistent players, I think that would be a good sell.
I kind of feel like a buy candidate that's, I mean, it's not like you should go out and pay for like back the Brinks truck up for, but Brandon Ayuk, I know Kobe said that you should sell him, but I feel like to an extent maybe you could also buy him, depending on if the manager that had Ayuk and they've had him since the beginning of the season is not sold on him at all and just wants off the train, even after the past 2 weeks, you might want to get him for like maybe like a wide receiver 4 or 5 kind of guy, not really like a top 2 receiver on your team. You don't want to do that, but if you can get him for a reasonable price, I'd definitely go after him. Um, for the next one, I mean, like, it's kind of like a mixture between buying and holding. Buy him if you can get him, and hold him if you got him. And I feel like that's Justin Jefferson. He's been kind of disappointing the past 2 weeks in terms of target share. Very few targets going his direction, but the Vikings offensive coordinator claimed that they need to get him the ball more. So I'd expect positive regression for him. So it's kind of like a mixture between a buy and a hold. If you got him, hold him. And for sell, I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel if you can get the correct value for him. Obviously, you don't want to sell him for a bag of chips, but I feel like with the way the 49ers offense is shifting the past few weeks, Kittle being back, them maybe using their backs a bit more, the offense is shifting a little bit away from a Deebo Samuel centric offense. So I feel like if you can convince somebody to buy him and give you good value in return, go for it.
Yeah, I think for me, my buy candidate's gonna be. I like Cordero Patterson, honestly. I mean, everyone with all the odds against him, he still is just performing. He's 30, so I mean, man's is getting old. And so I think he doesn't have the best playoff schedule, but he just returns kicks. He's catches the ball, runs the ball. I mean, he just has so many purpose yards that it's tough to not want to pick him up. And my sell is Damian Harris. He has a touchdown in 4 straight games, but he doesn't really catch the ball, and he has difficult matchups coming up, and so I just don't think that's it's not going to be a consistent thing for him scoring all the time. I don't think he's going to keep it up. So I think you should get rid of him while you can. And my hold is going to be Michael Pittman. I think he's producing well, and he's the wide receiver 7 in PPR right now, at least for us. And so I think some people don't necessarily trust him, maybe. And so I guess if you could get a lot for him, I would sell him, but I don't know if people trust him, so I would hold him and just keep getting his production.
All right, and then we'll move on to this week. I asked everyone to choose a QB, who they think is going to be the best QB this week, and I said Tom Brady versus Washington. Like I said earlier, I think he's going to absolutely light him up. I don't care who's out there on the field. It could literally be Aaron. Tom Brady's going to throw some damn touchdowns. and he's done it all his career. He did it with Julian Edelman. He did it with Chris Hogan, who was a professional lacrosse player. And you could throw the what was that, John Franklin III that used to be on the Bucks, that was a backup quarterback for Auburn. You throw him on the field, he becomes the best wide receiver in the NFL because Tom Brady's throwing the ball to him. So I think Tom Brady goes up there, lights him up, 300 yards, 3 to 4 touchdowns, gets you an easy 28, 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, I think something important Brady said right there was it doesn't really matter who Tom Brady is throwing to. It could literally be Aaron out there scoring touchdowns next week for all we know. But Tom Brady's going to put up some points. However, I got a different quarterback due strictly because of matchup and how he's been producing this year. I picked Lamar Jackson because he is 6th in the NFL in rushing. He is 6th as a quarterback in rushing in the NFL right now. He's going to put up a lot of rushing points for the standard and both PPR leagues. He's playing the Dolphins right now, who are beat up. Their offense isn't very good. It could be very easily a blowout, which might limit him a little bit. But with a blowout, you got to score points. And when you're scoring points in the Baltimore Ravens, you're using Lamar Jackson, especially his legs. So I'm assuming Lamar Jackson's going to have a big week this week. He also averages 27 points, so he's kind of a safe candidate to put out there. And he had a monster game last week. So, and he's just exciting to watch. So that's why I picked Lamar Jackson.
For my QB pick of the week, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. He's back from injury. He's missed the game. He's ready to play. I think he's gonna blow it up. He's gonna have to if they're gonna beat the Packers.
I got an entirely different pick also. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford in a primetime game against a division rival. And they've had some concerns recently. And I feel like this is a very big week for Matthew Stafford, just simply based on matchup and all the weapons they've got.
As bad as I want to pick Dak Prescott to be the best quarterback of the week, going up against the Atlanta offense, my thought process is that they're going to get up big potentially, or maybe get too comfortable with a lead and then run the ball or they may be on the ball anyways because Atlanta's defense is so bad. So I want him to produce, but I think Josh Allen's going to be the best quarterback of the week. He's coming off a bad game, but they're playing the Jets. So I think just off a matchup and how he's produced this season against bad matchups, I think he's going to come out on top.
I'd agree with you. Next, we're going to do sell high candidates, but first, let's introduce Zach, or let Zach introduce himself because everyone else did an introduction except for him because he was a little late. So Zach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, as Barry said, my name is Zach Burnett. I mean, we are Dak's disciples in the fantasy league, so that's why I'm biased toward Dak. But yeah. What did y'all tell about yourselves when y'all started?
We just
Set our record.
Yeah, our record and
Oof.
our accolades. You could have said like that you came in second in the first year, but lost to me by like 1,000 points.
Yeah, I mean that did happen. It was actually like 2,000, I think. But yeah, the first season I came in second, and last season I tanked to get a good pick, and that did not work because my team is garbage this year. And I think I'm 3-5. But of course, Ayuk starts going crazy the last 2 weeks, and I drafted him in like the 4th round. So I mean, in the end all be all, maybe my team would have been amazing if they just would have performed at the beginning of the season.
What could have been?
That's true.
All right. Well, now we'll move on to the sell high candidates, and I think there's a pretty obvious one, and that's the one that I chose. So I chose James Conner. He put up 40 points, pretty much off the back of 4 touchdowns. He's not going to get 4 touchdowns every week. He's not going to go off every week like he did. He's not a bell cow. He showed that in Pittsburgh. His yards per carry is crap this year. He doesn't have the best receiving upside, even though he did do good this week. I just don't think that he's going to be consistent enough for you to keep him on your roster, especially given the price that you could get for him right now. I mean, in our league alone, um, someone traded Stephon Diggs for James Conner. I'm not saying that was a good trade, but that's a prime example of selling high on James Conner and getting something that could help your team push to the playoffs or through the playoffs.
All right, for my sell high, I've got a guy who started off the year really hot. I think he was like a top 5 wide receiver, just started off really hot. But over the last few games, he's had 5 targets over the last 3 games and 5.5 fantasy points on average. And that's Mike Williams for the Chargers. So I think he showed really early on. He got a lot of people convinced that he could be a number 1 receiver. And he was actually eclipsing Keenan Allen in that role. But now he's kind of reverted back to his boomer bust potential that he was drafted for. And fantasy owners are either going to have to live with that or sell high on him while he still has value. Because eventually I think he's going to finish like top 25 receiver, but not the top 10 that he was projected to early in the season.
I'd say my sell high candidate would be probably Joe Mixon. It just depends on how you feel about that situation. He's put up 25 and 28 the past 2 weeks. That's great. I think it's either between holding him or selling him. It depends on if you believe in Joe Mixon. If you drafted Joe Mixon this year, that means you had some belief in him because not a lot of people did. I mean, he's got multiple weeks with less than 15 points. Like I said, 25 and 28 the past 2 weeks. They played the Jets in Cleveland. It just really depends on if you think Jamar Chase is going to be taking touchdowns away from him, or if they're going to have to throw the ball more. But I think you could probably get a pretty penny out of him if you felt you needed to draft him and you weren't very sure about his production over the rest of the season.
There's a very painstakingly obvious sell high candidate, which Brady's already mentioned. Obviously, James Conner. He's not really a PPR back that much. Chase Edmonds was, and they'll likely use another guy for those pass catching situations, probably, Benjamin. You just can't chase touchdowns, and that's what you're chasing with James Conner. And I mean, he's not going to have every week having like 3 or 4 touchdowns. He might have 1 or he might have 2, but you can't go off of that for him.
I think he's not necessarily like not necessarily, I guess, like a star player that you're gonna see. Maybe you consider him this, but I think you can, for what you can get for value, it's a good sell high candidate. That's what we're doing with sell high. I think TJ Hawkinson. I think the gap between him and the other tight ends is starting to slim down some, and he's becoming a little bit more mediocre. And he's coming off a hot game, 10 catches, 89 yards, and he's seen 31 targets over the last 3 games. But his next 5 opponents rank in the top half of the league in limiting fantasy points to tight ends. And then the latter 3 rank in the top 7. And that's the Bears, Vikings, and Broncos. So I think you could go out and, after coming off a hot game, and maybe get like a Dalton Schultz and a decent wide receiver or running back that can add to your depth and give you a better team overall.
All right, sweet. Those were all good picks. I noticed Aaron just copied me, which was cool, but whatever.
Side note, Debo potentially.
The right
Debo's
answer was
I was gonna.
answer was James Conner this week.
It was.
That's true.
Right, he was the
Yeah,
right
we're
Debo's
gonna
also
throw more.
Debo's also a really good draw.
Aaron just never mind. Continue.
All right. Next thing's gonna be favorite player for the rest of the season. Basically, just the player that we think is gonna do well the rest of the season. Who has a great playoff schedule for fantasy, stuff like that. For mine, I chose DK Metcalf. because he's not super expensive right now. He's not been having like huge games with Geno Smith. I think he had one, and he's Russ's favorite target. I mean, Tyler Lockett's there, but Tyler Lockett goes off once every 4 weeks. So those other 3 weeks is going to be all DK, and you cannot tell me that after Russ comes back from injury that he's not going to want to air it out because he's been sitting on the bench watching Geno Smith hand it off to some fourth string running back. No, he's going to come back. He's going to launch some nukes to DK, and DK is a physical, has good hands, and he's a great receiver. He has favorable matchups in the playoffs. So yeah, I think he's going to be the best player for the rest of the season that you could buy right now.
So my player for the rest of the season, my favorite player at least, was Jamar Chase, wide receiver for the Bengals. I think a lot of the teams in the draft went with the same sort of strategy, which was pair their college receiver and their college QB together. And there was a lot of speculation about Chase early in the season, in the preseason, especially with him dropping balls and doing stuff like that. But if you drafted him, he's immediately and consistently paid off his draft capital of what you paid for him. So he's a top 5 receiver right now in fantasy. He's only 21 years old, so if you get him in Dynasty, you can keep him forever. Him and Joe Burrow aren't going anywhere. You could say that the Bengals have a harder schedule coming up, which is true, but the Bengals are also a better team than people thought, and they are the opponents are going to be looking at them and saying, "Oh, we have a hard schedule too. We got to cover Jamar Chase over there." So it was just amazing that they drafted him, and he's really fun to watch. So I got Jamar Chase.
I'd say my favorite player for the rest of the year is A.J. Brown. Titans just lost Eric Henry. They're going to have to air out the ball to win games, and Ryan Tannehill's going to have to step up. With Julio hurt, being on and off with playing, I think A.J. Brown is the pinnacle of that offense. And like I said, they're going to have to throw the ball to him. I see a lot of fantasy points coming his way in the next few weeks.
I feel like my candidate for this is Saquon Barkley. Go back and look at week 3 and week 4. That's what you're going to get with him pretty much every week after the bye, especially in PPR formats, simply because those 2 games, that was him 100% unleashed, no snap restriction, nothing. He's got such an easy schedule. I feel like he's going to be like a boom candidate every week. And I'm talking like near 20 points every week or more.
Not
Maybe
to interrupt you,
possibly
Aaron,
30.
but Zach, are you like shaking your stomach?
No.
It looked like, I guess it's your phone, but from the look of it looked like you were trying to belly dance. It's
About-
not doing
was
it
I hit-
now, but it was.
Was it you talking about like my screen was shaking or I was?
I couldn't tell. It's like the bottom half of your body was just moving with a
No,
vengeance.
I'm probably moving my legs around.
All right. Anyway, it's your turn.
Belly dancing.
You done, Aaron? Okay. So I think my favorite player for the rest of the season is gonna be Jonathan Taylor. I mean, man is number 2 running back. He'll be number 1, I guess, after this week. I mean, Derrick Henry was putting up some big numbers. I don't even know if he's still number 1. He's been out for a week or 2 now. But I mean, I don't think it really matters who Jonathan Taylor plays at this point. He didn't start off hot, but I mean, his the last few weeks here. I mean, actually, since week 4, he's put up 1 week he put up 18, but he's put up 20 plus every week besides week 5, or week 7, my bad. And so I think he's just going to continue to put up big numbers every week, and yeah.
All right. Well, those are all good answers as well. Now we're going to be moving on to the general NFL section, not necessarily focusing on fantasy. This is going to be more of an open discussion. It's not going to go person to person. Really just chime in whenever you feel like it. Well, don't interrupt people, but state your opinion whenever you feel like it. We're going to start off with the state of the refs in the NFL. I mean, it's just been horrendous, obvious. Honestly, I mean, just the penalties this year, the taunting literally cost the Bears that game, and that's just something that shouldn't happen. Even though that it wasn't really a taunting call. Cassius or what's his name?
Cassius Marsh.
Cassius Marsh. There we go. He looked at the sideline, and then the ref hip checked him and threw a taunting flag on him. So that is absolutely ridiculous, and it's obvious that the refs now are trying to make it their game, and the players have to play by their rules, not how the game should be played. So I think it's honestly ridiculous, and it's horrible for the game. I mean, you have games being decided by people that aren't even in the game. So I don't know. What do y'all think?
You know, I have a really hot take on this, Ben. Me and you talked about this earlier this week, but you know, sometimes I feel like the refs also don't agree with some of the rule changes in the NFL, and with how that ref responded to the the penalty that he called, he said, you know, this is just a big. I don't know exactly what he said. If someone knows, tell me. But he pretty much said, you know, this is a big focal point of our job right now and of the game, and that's just kind of my job. And sometimes I think refs also too don't agree with calls, and so they overcall things to show how stupid they are. But I doubt that's all the time. But I could see some of them doing that for sure.
Not to
I
mention,
think I got the clip.
Not to mention the NFL came out and said that was the right call. Like the actual the commissioner's office said that was the correct call and that has no plans to change it. I mean, honestly, it just shows that the NFL doesn't care about what's good for the game. They care about what pisses off the owners of the teams. I'm sorry these 70-year-old white men get pissed when some players celebrate. But that's just how it is in 2021. When you have a good play, you get a pivotal sack in the fourth quarter of a game that you need to win, you're going to celebrate. You might taunt a little bit. Who cares? That's what you deserve.
Yeah, I don't understand why they make it such a big deal. The fines in the NFL are actually ridiculous at the moment. I mean, CeeDee Lamb gets fined. How much did he get fined for that untucked jersey?
He
It's
got
plus
fined like
20,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think $45K or $25K.
It was about 20, I think.
And then Aaron Rodgers gets fined $16,000 for
breaking
COVID stuff.
Protocols.
So they really need to figure out their priorities of the game.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's gonna get to a boiling point. I mean, it's already gotten at a boiling point. I mean, the refs literally cost the Saints a game in the playoffs against the Rams, where the Rams went on to the Super Bowl. Saints should have won that
They
game.
They did change the rules after that.
I know, but it still just shows that the refs have too much power over the game.
I'm just generally kind of annoyed by the objective penalties that constantly happen. Like one defender in one game can absolutely baptize a quarterback and it not get called for roughing the passer, but then the next game that night you could have a defensive end just graze the quarterback's face and it's a penalty on him. Just
What
stuff
game
like
was that?
And
I
then
know
it's
you referred to it like
such
we were watching a
arbitrary
game, weren't we?
penalties. Like Justin Fields, I think, was getting absolutely
Justin
massacred,
Fields.
and they would not call it. But if it was like, I mean, it's just dumb. It's just so subjective. 1 week you might have the refs calling it if anyone even touches a quarterback, just for that example, and then the next week it may be like all hits are fair game, just basically. Just if you could have a consistent ability to determine what constitutes this and what doesn't, and actually officiate based off of that, is fine. But they don't. No.
But the question is do we as a group want more hits on the quarterback or less hits on the quarterback?
I want football. I want it to be fair across the field, you know? I think a quarterback should be able to get hit just as much as a wide receiver does on a crossing route. I mean, you can't expect an NFL defensive lineman that's probably upwards of 280 pounds to come to a complete stop while chasing the quarterback just because the quarterback got rid of the ball half a second before the defensive lineman got there. What do they want him to do? Tear out his ACL to stop and turn? That makes it even worse. They're overvaluing the safety of these quarterbacks. They sign up to play football. That's
facts.
they sign up to play football. Football is a brutal game. They have to allow them to get hit and treated like every other player. That's the only way I can see it's fair.
My least favorite thing is when, like, I saw it, I don't remember when it was, a few weeks ago, maybe 5 or 6, I don't know. Literally, the defensive lineman got tripped on his way to the quarterback. He couldn't, what do you do? He's falling, and he hits the quarterback in the legs, roughing the passer. He literally, you can tell, like, it was very obvious he tripped. Like, he wasn't just going for the man's legs, he just fell, and he couldn't catch his balance.
It's ridiculous. Did we lose Aaron?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, also the question with the quarterback rules is that if we take away the protection that the quarterback gets nowadays, we're not going to have the Tom Brady's anymore. We're not going to have them. They're going to be out of the NFL by the time they're 40. Like, we're not going to have them
grew
anymore.
up without the protection.
I know, but he grew up young without that protection. If he was still the same, he wouldn't be there. There's no way he'd be playing in his 40s right now.
So?
Without what's that rule?
Rule?
I don't know, the tuck rule and all that
That's
stuff.
not really a player safety thing. But
I guess not a tuck rule.
yeah, I guess, but if he can't play to the physicality that the NFL is, should he be playing?
That's the thing. Like, yeah, I don't want to see people get hurt. No. But you do have to understand you're getting paid millions of dollars to play a game that you choose to play. Like, you understand what it takes. Like, I'm not saying I want to see people tearing their ACLs every season and never playing, but I'm just saying it's just too much. Like, some of it's rough. I understand some of it. Sometimes it is malicious, and you can tell. But a lot of the times it's not.
Yeah, and it's like you expect these NFL quarterbacks to, like, they want to protect the quarterback and all that. I understand. They want to protect players for safety. But what you're doing is hurting other players that aren't the quarterback by making these rules, because it's going to make defensive linemen or defensive backs, when they try not to get targeting, or safeties or linebackers, hurt themselves by trying to put them in a position to not get a foul.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to be thinking about that.
Mm-mm.
Because, like, with targeting especially, like, with targeting, you can tell if targeting is a purposeful thing or not, or if they're just trying to make a play. Like, brings me back to Auburn and Penn State. Auburn, I think his linebacker, maybe cornerback, was stopping. The Penn State guy he could have easily reached over the goal line, but the Auburn defensive player hit him in the back, and they called targeting. But, like, what is he supposed to do in that situation? Like, just let him score? Because, like, he easily could have extended. So that just... And then he gets ejected. He's a senior. And it's a wideout game. And you're out of the game for just making a play. Like, it's kind of annoying.
Definitely need to reevaluate at least the penalty for it. You know? Like, being taken out half a game, or, out of the game for the rest of the game. I mean, that's ridiculous. Cubby, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I feel like you guys covered it. So,
okay. All right. Well, the next thing we were going to talk about is the media portrayals of A-Rod, Aaron Rodgers, and it's just another one of those. It's just, I can't understand it. He came on the Pat McAfee podcast and talked about his plight with the COVID vaccine and how he's allergic to 2 of them because of the mRNA vaccines, and that he didn't want to take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it's linked to blood clots. And somehow these major media outlets and major sports talk hosts missed that he was allergic to it, and the other one was recalled, and instead said that he was being deceitful and tried to say that basically that he had the vaccine when he didn't. But that's not what he said at all. He literally just said that he was allergic to it. He took his own health into his own hands, and that he did everything he could and cooperated with the NFL and his team, abided by all the rules, even the ones he didn't believe in, but yet they still want to drag him through the mud? I mean, come on now.
Well, did he technically abide by the rules? Because I think the rule, like, what are the rules of the NFL for unvaccinated individuals, like, outside of work? Like, aren't you not supposed to go, like, in areas without a mask and stuff like that? Like, when, for example, like during Halloween parties and stuff like that, like he did.
He wasn't allowed to go to the Halloween party. with the team.
In the press conferences, he was seen without a mask, and I think that's what the fine was for. I don't know if you knew that, but that's what the fine was for. So Aaron brought that up in his interview with Pat McAfee and said, if everybody else in the room was vaccinated and I got tested today, I should be the safest person there, as long with them. So I don't know which side you're leaning with that, but that's what the fine was for. I think him and one other player on the team got fined for similar instances,
Alan
just not wearing a
Lazard.
mask. Yeah.
That's rough.
And then Terry Bradshaw, the old coot, comes out and says, we've got players that pretty much only thinks about themselves. That is absolutely ridiculous. He told his entire team and the league what was going on and why he couldn't do it. He even tried to get taken off the non-vaccinated list because he couldn't be vaccinated. But it's just it's ridiculous. They're gonna drag him through the mud, and then I think Hakeem Olajuwon came out and said something about it, which he is just the king of bad takes when it comes to the COVID stuff. But he gets a slap on the wrist with a fine, which I guess saves the NFL some face, but it doesn't. It's ridiculous that there's media outlets allowing him to be dragged through the mud for this when he didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion.
With all the preseason drama, the not caring, it seemed like the press conferences. Man's is on a mean streak to win MVP. I mean, come on.
He'll never
now.
win MVP again. Pat McAfee said that. He'll never win it again because he's not vaccinated.
That's probably true.
And you got to think Terry Bradshaw, I think, is someone that votes for the MVP.
Oh yeah.
So because it's an Associated Press thing.
Gotcha.
It's not an NFL thing. So he'll probably never win an MVP again.
If he did though, after everything, that'd
Imagine
be
he
pretty
comes out and
hilarious.
throws like 100 touchdowns in a season. Like, how could you deny that
It-
man MVP?
It's Tom Brady's to lose this year.
Lamar and Kyler have been putting up some. Well, we didn't
Not
really
enough.
come to discuss the MVP, but Lamar and Kyler have been putting up some numbers.
Yeah.
Josh Allen deserves to be thrown in the conversation at least. Derrick
Yeah,
Henry
and
did before he died.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think Tom Brady's in the same boat as like LeBron. He's like done it so many times, like they just don't want to give it to him anymore.
Also, you got to think that is Tom Brady the most valuable player to his team?
That's
Like,
probably true. Could you? Yeah.
Is he? He's got a star-studded cast around him, a good defense. Is he
Okay,
more
you-
valuable than Derrick
put
Henry
Ja-
was?
Is
You
it
put Jameis
more
Winston
valuable
there,
for your
let's see.
team or more valuable for the whole league? Who's the most valuable player in the whole league?
I mean, arguably, that you could say that who's the best player in the league at that point. I think that would.
I
go
think
hand in
he's the
hand.
most valuable. If you're starting a franchise, you start with John Brady.
Right now at 40 or 45.
If you want to, yeah. If you want the best quarterback in the league right now, who's playing the best?
I don't know. That
I would
segues-
disagree.
It segues us to another point though of is Lamar the best player in the NFL right now? Like, is he the best football player? Not necessarily best on like best quarterback, best whatever. Is he the best football player? And I think the answer is yes.
No.
And I think it's
No.
not even close. Who's better than him, Noah?
A lot of people. It depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about
Who does the
Speed?
most for their team? Who
does the
wins
most
their
for their
team
team?
games like Lamar does?
who loses teams games like Lamar does is what
Lamar
is the
doesn't
real
lose his
question.
team games. Lamar's the only reason that they're in the games.
But if Lamar isn't producing, they're not winning.
That's the point.
But that's also the point.
Yeah, I think if they still had like the years they had Flacco, even leading up to the Lamar, like him handing the reins to Lamar, Flacco wasn't terrible. They were a playoff team there too. I wouldn't say he's producing like they would be useless without him. With any top, 20 quarterback, they might be in a similar position.
My boss at work is a big Tom Brady fan, and I like Tom Brady. I think he's a very good quarterback, but he has had good defenses over the years. And so I made a little chart of all the Super Bowl years that they won in the NFL ranks of defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think out of the 7 Super Bowls?
Yes.
Is it-
No, he's won 7. He's lost 2.
Okay, well, out of the 7 he's won, there were, I think, 3 top 4 or 5 defenses in the league, and then 5 of the 7 were top, I think, 10 or 12.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
was
he's
like-
always been. But that's also to his credit because he took pay cuts that other players wouldn't to get a good team.
Yeah, he
Um,
definitely is the best player in terms of like people want to play with him.
Oh yeah, but when you look at Lamar, I'm talking about this year. I'm talking about this year, not like in all time, not who's the better quarterback all the time, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about who's the best football player in the NFL right now. If you look at it, Lamar is averaging 351 yards per game. This is a fact from ESPN NFL. That's more than 17 teams. Lamar Jackson by himself is averaging more yards than 17 teams. Name another player that does that.
Name another player who has to do that.
That's the thing about Lamar, though, that he has to do that, and he's doing it. He's doing what his team requires. They're 6-2 right now.
But he's had
yards was that?
one game. He's had one game, and
351.
how many years has he played? 4 or 3?
What
How
do
many
you
years
mean
has
one
Lamar
game?
Jackson played?
300
No,
how many?
listen.
51?
Just
Yeah,
wait.
51.
How many games? How many years has he been playing?
He had his MVP year, 2 years ago? So the year before
So a year
that-
before that,
Yeah.
so 3. He's had one game with over 400 passing yards,
He doesn't have to do over 400 passing yards.
but he's not going to be doing it for long.
Why not? What, have you seen any inclination that he's slowing down?
You age eventually.
Okay. They said the same thing about Tom Brady, that he wouldn't be able to keep up with it. Now he's 45.
He didn't build his
Tom-
resume off running, though.
He didn't.
That
It's
he's
a
more
different
akin to
aspect.
Cam Newton,
He's a different aspect.
whereas Cam Newton won the MVP and then, his legs gave up on him. Tom Brady's averaging 331 yards per game, by the way. Just passing yards. Obviously, I didn't look up his rushing yards, but just in passing yards, he's pretty close to Lamar.
And to be fair, that's another thing. Lamar doesn't have the target. Doesn't have like the weapons around him that Tom Brady has at all. I mean, their starting running back is Devontae Freeman. Their best wide receiver is Marquise Brown, and he's having a career year, but he's still not, a true wide receiver one. They have Mark Andrews, but that's it. Their offensive line isn't amazing. The holes that their offensive line has, Lamar takes up, fills, basically. So I don't see how there's another player that's better than him in the NFL right now. Not saying he's the best quarterback, but I don't see another player that does as much for their team as Lamar does for the Ravens.
I'll
You're
agree
probably
with
right.
you that he doesn't do. You go, Zach. You got it.
Oh, I was just gonna say you're probably right, but I think it's tough to. Yes, he probably does do the most for his team, but it's easier for him to do the most for his team, if that makes any sense, just because he's at the quarterback position. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you took out quarterbacks and just had well, I guess you can't say that either. But I don't know, since he's averaging, good yardage in terms of overall yardage, yes, he runs and throws, which is going to make him more valuable. But it seems like, Cordero Patterson does a lot for his team too, but since he doesn't throw the ball, it's tough to put him in the same category, in my opinion.
That's fair. What were you saying, Noah?
I would disagree.
What?
Because if you look at last year when Dak went down for the Cowboys and how important he was to that team, even though they have the offensive weapons, really quarterback is the most important part of your football team.
Yeah.
So, and when you're comparing quarterbacks, do you want Lamar, who's top 10, or do you want Tom Brady, who's top, 2? You also have Patrick Mahomes in that conversation. So to state that Lamar is the best player in the league, it's kind of an undersell, and it's an oversell, really, because other quarterbacks are doing the same thing, and if they went down, their offense would completely change. You'd see how bad and how much they are doing for the offense.
Think about it like this, okay? If you took Lamar, let's say Tom Brady goes down, he's out for the season, and you put Lamar on Tampa, that team's still competitive, right? That team's still, a playoff favorite. You take Lamar and what he does for the Ravens, and you take him out for the season and put Tom Brady on the Ravens, are the Ravens still a favorite? Just because Tom Brady's
They're
there?
very likely, yeah. He made a career throwing to Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola. You don't think he can throw to Rashad Bateman, a first-round pick, and Marquise Brown,
He could,
and their tight end as well?
but they also don't have the offensive line to keep him up. At least not pass
So,
protection. So I think what we see in the where Lamar struggles in terms of passing is really just him not having the people around him to succeed at that, and their offensive style not being to do that. Because it's obvious their offensive style is pound the ball, get the run game going, and then pass open, do some quick screens, stuff like that. But I just don't think you could incorporate Tom Brady into that offense as easy as you'd be able to incorporate Lamar into Tampa. Because that whole offense is
yeah,
built around Lamar.
that's probably right, but that wasn't the point of Lamar being the most
That's true. Maybe I should
useful.
say most versatile. That he's the most
So
versatile football player. Because
you
if
could
you
definitely plug him into the majority of situations, and he's good. But I'm looking at Joe Burrow too. He's putting up similar numbers with similar sack percentages too. Like he gets sacked uh, one more time actually than Lamar.
Mhm.
So and I think if you put Joe Burrow on the Ravens too, he'd be pretty good.
maybe. And then we had Aaron, you just missed out on the Lamar discussion. Um,
Lamar.
what do y'all think about the Giants and their situation? Do you think it's time for them to potentially move on from their third overall or second overall pick in Saquon and seventh overall pick in Daniel Jones? It hasn't really panned out well for them. They're not having any kind of postseason success or regular season success. Jones looked good at the beginning of this season, but has quickly fell off. Saquon can't stay on the field, so
I think they need to determine if they believe that their wide receiver core is who they want to play with. If not, I think they need to pick up a wide receiver in the draft. I think they need to let Daniel Jones at least have 1 year with Saquon fully healthy. If that's next year, so be it. If it's not, they need to move on. Say if Saquon gets hurt again next year, I think they should give him a chance with a fully healthy Giants team, and either get him some weapons on offense or either try to fix that defense. But I don't think it's time to move on yet. But it's soon.
He stays injured too much.
Saquon.
Yeah.
See, for me, it's really tough because the Giants kind of screwed themselves. They took a running back at second overall, which I get it. Saquon was a generational talent coming out of college. But you can't take the most replaceable position in the NFL with a second overall pick. You just can't. Because they could have got an edge rusher, they could have got a quarterback, but instead they got a running back that, we've seen Devontae Booker come in and put up pretty good numbers. Not Saquon level, obviously. It didn't have the explosiveness of Saquon. But shows that Saquon is replaceable. And same thing with CMC. CMC was replaced by Chuba Hubbard, who did good. Mike Davis last year, was amazing. But they kind of screwed themselves with taking him in that second overall pick because it's going to be a lot harder for them to get rid of him now because they invested that much of a pick into him. And they know that he is a generational talent when he's on the field. He just can't get on the field. And then Daniel Jones, if he can't stop turning the ball over, then it's probably time to move on from him. Because, he has the most fumbles by far in the last 3 years in the NFL. And he's just you don't watch Daniel Jones and think, man, I'm really scared of Daniel Jones, like you don't sit there like with the same fear that you'd have if Tom Brady had the ball with a minute left and he's down by 6. You give Daniel Jones the ball in that situation, you're like, I think we got pretty good odds, or we're gonna win this game. He just doesn't strike fear into the opponent's hearts at all because he turns the ball over. He doesn't have the best passing accuracy. He's got some legs, but he can't just be legs.
Doesn't help when you trip and fall when nobody touches you.
That too.
Yeah, I'd say it's time to almost cut bait with both of them. Unfortunately, I think not Lamar, Saquon's contract has 1 more year on it, so unless they can find a suitor for him, they're going to be stuck with him for a minute. I think Daniel Jones is up this year, actually, so I think that would be helpful for them. They really messed up when they signed Saquon to a deal assuming that he would ever come back healthy, which is just a bet you really don't want to take with running backs. It's not something you want to invest money in long term. But they did it, and now they're stuck in this situation. So hopefully they find a suitor for him, or they ride out the contract and just decide to be mediocre until then.
Yeah.
After the
Especially with
Daniel
the
Jones
knee
thing.
injury. Knees are
Feel like-
rough.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's battled
Right.
so many injuries that it's almost. I mean, he's almost a liability to them at this point because him not being on the field takes away their best player. He is their best player in terms of salary cap, draft pick, like where they took him at, and everything else. And if he's not available, it screws him over.
right. And if they took that Daniel Jones money and that Saquon money and got a real quarterback, that could be potentially, the move going forward. But we'll just have to see. It's hard to tell. Their defense isn't doing them much help,
No,
giving
not
them
at
much
all.
favors.
And their wide
They went and
receivers.
signed a bunch of receivers that
Yeah.
haven't really panned out, but that's maybe due to Daniel Jones more.
Yeah, they haven't really panned out at all, and it could be Daniel Jones' fault, but also Kenny Galladay seems like a diva. Kadarius Toney tries to fight everyone he sees when he's not putting up 40 points in fantasy. And I guess Sterling Shepard. He's a pretty solid wide receiver.
He's good.
And Darius Slayton's not bad, but yeah, I just think Daniel Jones is the issue there. That and their offensive line. They paid what's his name, that left tackle from the Patriots, way too much money for him just not
That
be
was
good.
one of the problems I was thinking about. A big issue for them isn't. I mean, Daniel and
Nate
Saquon
Solder.
are part of the problem, but you also have to consider the offensive line issues they've had for like years now, like a revolving door on the offensive line. The defense doesn't have a ton of playmakers currently. I think they've pretty much shipped off most of their big playmakers in the past, and they're kind of they're in a transition period on the defensive side still. And still, I mean, the line doesn't really have an identity, so the jury's still out for them on both Daniel Jones and Saquon, simply because of the team around them. I don't feel that the roster around those two has exactly been a competitive, like, we could have a real good chance to win the NFC East kind of roster.
Hold up some stats. It says, I don't know if these are accurate, should be. Daniel Jones in his career has played 36 games, and he has 27 interceptions. And that's not even
Sounds about
including
right.
fumbles.
Yeah, he's a turnover machine. Which could, I mean, the fumbles and stuff you could link to the offensive line because he gets
True.
blindsided. But still, it's ridiculous.
They actually both have 1 more year on their contracts, so looks like the Giants are gonna be in
That's what I'm
downs.
saying. You give them one more year, and then after next year, you just kind of.
I feel like we've seen enough this year that you want out right now.
In the perfect world, I think they would try to keep Saquon, and get rid of Daniel Jones, and probably go not for a rookie quarterback this time. They really need a bridge quarterback that could kind of just hold them over, and then get a good quarterback at the end of Saquon's tenure there. But I just don't see that happening. The Giants have just as bad front office as the Jets. So I mean, they
But
let
how-
Eli Manning stay there for 20 years, and Eli Manning.
But
Was
how do you
nothing.
get rid of? How do you get rid of Daniel Jones? You don't
don't sign
trade
him
him.
back.
No one wants him.
You just
don't
bench
sign
him.
back. Yeah.
So you just lose the pick you used on him. You just lose it.
Yeah. I would just bench him
Alright.
after the
You
quarterback again
got
next
to
year.
cut your losses. I mean, it's either that or you give him more money for him to play like crap.
Or do
Yeah.
you sign him? Do you sign him again and just pick up another quarterback and just hope he stays as a backup?
Why would you do that? Why would you waste
That's
your
what I'm
money?
saying. You don't sign
I
him
don't know.
yet. You just wait for us and see what he does. If he wants to be a backup, let him be a backup. But with Saquon, you still got to you can't feel right about him starting a 16, now 17 game season.
Yeah.
So in the draft, you still got to invest in running back, which means that pick you used on him is not worth anything if he's on the field for 3 games.
Yeah, and that's another thing we're going to be seeing is when these extra long seasons is more and more backfields going to running back committee because they just don't think the running backs can be able to hold up 17 games, which is a fair point. So that'll be interesting. But another thing I wanted to talk about was Carson Wentz. Do y'all think he's the future of the Colts? Because personally, I do. This year, he has a 100 passer rating. Andrew Luck's career average was 89.5. He's thrown for 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, has over 2,000 passing yards. He's completely revitalized that team. They're much better than the team than they were last year with Phillip Rivers in terms of offensive production. Jonathan Taylor's came into his own now because he's able to actually have like defensive players not stack the box because they have someone that can throw the ball deep. And he's not playing hero ball. He's giving it to his playmakers, and it's working out so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, you got Michael Pittman, who I don't know, is this his second year in the league?
Yeah.
I mean, he's looking like a young star. You got Jonathan Taylor, young star. Their offensive line, when fully healthy, is amazing. So, I mean, things are looking up. Now, the defense, it has some issues, but the offense is looking pretty stellar for the future, at least.
Yeah. I think Carson Wentz has finally found his home, in my opinion.
I think you'd probably want to pump the brakes on that right now. I think they're paying him like $21 million or something
Oh yeah,
for
no,
a
it's a ridiculous
29-year-old
contract.
quarterback. Huh?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous contract.
Yeah, for a 29-year-old quarterback, he'll be 32 by the time they can really get rid of most of that money, as it just keeps going up. And he's doing fine, but you have to look at last year. Phillip Rivers with the same team essentially went 11-5, and right now the Colts are sitting at 4-5. And you got to be thinking, they wish they'd won some more games, and you can't really do that if you got an aging quarterback that you're paying a whole bunch of money.
To be fair, last year their defense did play a lot better, and Carson Wentz did have to readjust. His first couple games he wasn't the best, but since he's readjusted, I think he's becoming again one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I think he'd be top 15 right now, pretty easily.
He's got
So
a bad kind of injury reputation, though. I feel like
he does.
at times
Yeah.
He does.
he
That's
runs
fair.
that risk. I don't know if you want to completely invest that kind of value into a quarterback. I mean, yeah, you kind of want a quarterback that can get you over the hump currently, and there's not a ton of quarterbacks that do that. Carson Wentz is kind of an enigma to me. I don't really know. He's had some success, but then he's had some really bad moments.
Yeah.
For the years that he's been in the league. So, I mean, I can't really say if he is the future of the Colts because I don't know if the Colts exactly themselves as an organization know what their future going forward is either.
Well, they invested a pretty good pick in him in a second round that's more than likely going to convert to a first round pick. And you don't give up that pick, huh?
That's going to stink.
You don't give up that pick if you're not prepared for him to be your future quarterback. And he's playing like it, in my opinion, at least right now. If he can stay healthy, because he's one of those quarterbacks, and there's not many of them in the league that can win you a game. And he's been known for doing that. It's a little bit of hero ball, which is not the best thing in the world, but he can win you games. There's certain quarterbacks that can, like Mahomes, Tom Brady, Lamar. And that's a lot higher on the hierarchy than Carson Wentz, but he can do that. Whereas you have quarterbacks like Jacoby Brissett playing tonight, he can't win you a game. He can manage the game and not put you in a position to lose, but he can't win you it. He relies on the skill players around him, whereas Carson Wentz, all of his life in Philly, didn't have to do that. I mean, at one point, his number one receiver was a backup quarterback in Greg Ward. So I think he can win you games. I think that you gotta stick with him. You gotta just hold on to him. You gotta look at him and invest in him as if he is the future. And if he sustains a big injury, then that's the risk you take. But you can't just let someone that's playing at that high of a level leave your organization, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Brady. I think you treat Carson Wentz as the future until he's not. Pretty much. I think he is not necessarily the far future. I think he's the future for the next 5 years, at least. and that's pending on injuries. But I think you treat him as the future until he's not anymore.
Going back to the contract talks, it's kind of hard to build your team around a quarterback that's being paid that much. And so, like, they're really going to be strapped. And I don't think, looking at their roster now, that the Colts are a Super Bowl contender. So, without not much room to change, is Carson Wentz just not really just a stopgap? Like, the quarterbacks that are paid more than him, I can't see a single one on this list that I wouldn't want. He's top 9 in like money that he's getting paid. I would rather have Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes more than Carson Wentz right now.
And you can
So
fault
the money
that
you're
on.
investing in,
Go ahead, my bad.
so for the money you're investing in him, and you have to keep paying that going forward, I would not try to like build around him. I would get rid of him.
And
Try to
you,
get him like a
you can
cheaper salary.
you can blame that huge contract on the NFL itself, because the NFL has started to value quarterbacks way higher than they should. Well, not maybe not way higher than they should, but just so high because they're so pivotal to teams that you have to pay average quarterbacks like elite money to keep them, because you don't want to fall into the category of a horrible team without an average quarterback. Um, like Jared Goff, they gave Jared Goff a huge contract, absolutely
Yeah,
massive,
he's right
because
beside him. Yeah,
he was above average, or he was average to above average at the time that he signed the contract. Um, and they didn't want to descend into having horrible quarterback play again. Now, luckily, they were able to offload him and get a much better quarterback for, I think, a little bit less, but they're still paying for a little bit of Goff, I think. Um, but you can't, like, as an NFL team, you have to pay those average to above average quarterbacks big money, and that's just what sucks until you find a generational talent like Tom Brady that's willing to take pay cuts to win. So, anyone else got anything to say about that?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, this is my favorite question that we put up, and I think it's kind of controversial. But has replacing Romo with Dak really changed anything about the Cowboys in terms of team success? Because we've seen that Dak hasn't really won anything in his time at the Cowboys. They moved on from Romo, who was a great quarterback, elite quarterback for them, that won them some playoff games, got them to a conference championship, I'm pretty sure. Dak's won one playoff game. He's 1-2. He was out for a season at one point, which Romo was too. Romo missed some time with injuries as well. A lot of time. Actually, that was the reason that Dak came in. But they just paid Dak big money. And are they expecting him to win? Because if not, then if they are expecting him to win, he hasn't shown any signs that he can. Which, it may not be his fault either. It could be the coaching. It could really just be the coaching's issue, because they have weapons around him. They have a decent defense this year. He's been playing great, but they still have nothing to show for it. So
They're a big victim of mostly the offensive coordinator, I think, to an extent, or the coaching. When you have back-to-back, coaching staffs that emphasize a very conservative style of offense half the time, it doesn't really bode well for production on the field for teams that have elite talent like the Cowboys do. I mean, you had Jason Garrett, who's like a glorified bum for a coach. I mean, dude literally sucks. And what is he doing with the Giants right now as the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken? Pretty much nothing. He doesn't know how to run an offense. And then Mike McCarthy, one of the most conservative coaches, like a good coach, but conservative. I mean, he just you're not using your weapons right. Now, there's some shoulder blame on Dak too, and the offense as a whole. But there's a lot more pieces moving in that whole team's locker room, front office, and roster fit that doesn't necessarily justify saying, well, the Romo Dak thing hasn't really changed anything. There's too many moving pieces, like the defense changing and all that stuff.
Um, I mean, the the Cowboys have seemed to always been getting flack, at least the past few years, about their defense being pretty horrendous. But I don't know. Dan Quinn was a horrible coach at the Falcons. The Falcons, I mean, maybe he
Did
wasn't
take them to
horrible,
a
but
Super Bowl.
he did. He wasn't a horrible coach. I don't know. I get disappointed with the Falcons every year.
That's fair.
But I don't know. Yes, Trevon Diggs has the hype. He has a bunch of interceptions, but he is giving up a lot of yards. But I think the defense this year is looking better than previous years for the Cowboys. And I mean, they're 6-2 right now, and the next best record in their division is the Eagles and the Giants, and they're both 3-6. So I think they've got a good shot to make it to the postseason this year, and maybe see what Dak can do for them as the leader of that offense.
And just to crap on McCarthy a little bit more, he had Aaron Rodgers for like what 10 years, I think, and won one Super Bowl. Arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL's history, and won one Super Bowl.
Yeah, I like
So-
A-Rod. I kind of, when I talking about my boss earlier being a Tom Brady fan, I pulled up the stat of the defensive rank for Aaron Rodgers' defense the year he won the Super Bowl, and it was like 26th or something. Might have been like 19, I don't remember.
No, was there anything you wanted to say?
I was going to say, I think that the answer to this question is what Dak can do this year. I think that if if they can't make it past a divisional round, if they can't, especially with CD, Amari Cooper, Zeke, Dak, you now have a sort of decent and admirable defense with Diggs. I think that this is a big year for Dak to determine what he can actually do and what he's actually worth to the organization.
I would agree with that.
Hey,
Just to
honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we were talking about Romo and how apparently good he was because he made it one game deeper than Dak his entire career. Romo's postseason record was 2-4. Dak's right now is 1-2. So they win about roughly the same amount of games. With arguably, you could say Romo had a better defense and just completely taken away all the other factors. Using the record as an example, they're both performing at the similar level. So it's not like replacing Romo changed much for the Cowboys, but it certainly didn't make things worse. And Dak has proven that, keep going, especially this year. We'll have to see what happens this year, like they said.
I don't know how much
I think-
y'all watched when Romo was at the Cowboys, but that felt like a team that could win any game. Like they could go into the game and win. Whereas up until this year, I didn't feel that way about Dak with the Cowboys. I felt like it was kind of, which could be the coaching once again, but I felt like it was kind of, they're going to try their best to win. Whereas the Cowboys of old with Romo was they could win. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's probably a personal thing right there. I need to look at the winning percentage to be sure, but yeah.
I think Dallas Schultz has been a good, like, low-key player that they have incorporated into the offense.
They have a great offense. Like their offense is amazing. It's top of the league, but they just have nothing to show for it right now. And I think they should honestly try to move on from Zeke. They paid him way too much money. Picked him way too high, kind of like Saquon. Because in that same draft, I think, wasn't Zeke and Saquon in the same draft? Were they?
Look,
don't
I
know.
was gonna say I think
They
Zeke
just-
is like third or fourth in rushing right now, so I don't know why they'd move on
I feel like Zeke was 2015.
I think Zeke was a year earlier.
Regardless of
But
where
they just don't need they don't need him. Like they do, I guess, but at the same time, it's kind of like
Tony Pollard
Where
would do
do
the
you-
same
wh-
thing that Zeke's doing right now.
that's what I'm saying. Like, where do you use him? Like, what difference in the game in your game plan is he making? Nothing.
Besides you paying
He's
him
not getting
so
goal
much
line
money.
carries. He's not being a dominant force on the field.
Well, Tony
Well,
Pollard's
Pollard
like a
got that
third down
workload, he
back,
may not-
like a 3-down back.
That's also
Yeah,
true,
if
Cody.
Pollard got that workload, he may not be the how efficient he is right now. Especially, I
He
think Zeke
is
makes a
that
lot of
way because
something
of
out of
that.
nothing.
You also got to think, like in the draft when they took Zeke, I think he was 4th overall, or somewhere around that. In the 2nd round, Derrick Henry was taken, and who's had the better career? But who's made the more money?
But that's what I'm
That's
saying. Like,
tough.
I think you can trade him. I think you can trade Zeke for some draft picks and
Not high ones.
maybe maybe a defensive player, and just put Tony Pollard in there. You wouldn't want to, but you can.
But see, the thing is,
Yeah, and he'd win less games.
other teams know that running backs aren't valuable or aren't as valuable as what they're paying Zeke. Zeke's contract is part of like just I think him being a Cowboy, if that makes any sense. Like they paid him a lot of money because he brings in money for them for jersey sales and like just like the fans support him and like him. Um, but other teams know that they would never pay Zeke that much money. Besides like the Jets did with Le'Veon Bell. But other teams know they would not pay him that much money, and then they also wouldn't give up draft picks just to pay him that much money. Because can you think of a team that is just a running back away from being a Super Bowl contender? I can't. So you're not going to pay that much money because that money that he's making, I forgot how much it is, but it's like I think it's top 10 in the league in for running backs. That money that he's making is enough to trade for a player that could win you a Super Bowl. But I don't think Zeke
The
can.
Ravens would be really good if
That's
they had
what
Zeke.
that's what I was
That's
literally. I
not
was
bad.
just looking at that. That's what I was thinking. The Ravens.
How much better the
Like,
Ravens
Like they are
get with Zeke?
definitely
Same
a Zeke
thing.
away from a Super Bowl. Read option with Zeke would be amazing. Zeke is some talent.
I don't know. I don't think the Ravens would be that much better with Zeke. Honestly,
You don't think they'd be good with a top 5 running back instead of Devontae
I
Freeman
mean,
back there?
I think they'd be better than what they are right now. But I don't think it instantly propels them to, potentially win a Super Bowl. Especially
I
with all
think
the
having
other.
Zeke puts Dallas in the Super Bowl conversation every single year. If they had Tony Pollard starting back there, that no one would care about their running backs. They wouldn't have to sell out to stop the run.
Well, it depends.
They would just try to stop that.
You also got to think the Cowboys had one of the best offensive lines in the league, and offensive lines obviously was what makes running backs better, or at least top tier. Look at Nick Chubb, look at Kareem Hunt, look at Dearness Johnson. Dearness Johnson shouldn't have put up 120 yards. They did because he was behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. So if you have,
I think you could put anyone back there,
yeah,
and they would be
essentially,
good.
and they'd be good, and so they're gonna have to sell out to respect that because your offensive line is so good. And then that opens up more for the passing attack, obviously. But so that's that. It's just a fact at this point that running backs are just not near as valuable as they once were. Outside of like
'Cause
obviously exceptions of Derrick Henry before injury.
the running back committee going by the 49ers has been kind of tough to nail down. Just by injuries, it's kind of they're a run first team. It's hard to find a running back that fits that scheme and that would do good. And I think if they had Zeke, that'd be way better too.
That would make sense to me. 49ers with Zeke, just because he brings them stability because they're just decimated by injuries. But I can't really think of any team that is a running back away from a Super Bowl though.
I got a trivia question.
You
Who?
got a trivia question?
Yeah.
Yeah, the trivia section.
Who's got the longest touchdown rush of the year?
In NFL?
Yeah.
Of the year, Jonathan
Yeah.
Taylor.
I'm gonna say Chubb. Chubb has a 70-yarder, I know.
Jonathan Taylor has a 74-yarder. I'm pretty sure
Yeah, I remember Jonathan
against
Taylor's.
the Jets.
I don't know if there's any other one that's.
Melvin Gordon?
Oh, Melvin Gordon. Oh, that's probably it.
I think Melvin's was 75.
Ooh, it might have been.
I thought it was like
Huh.
80.
Is that your final answers?
Yeah, I'm saying
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor.
I'm switching to Melvin.
So Jonathan, Melvin, and what you got, Aaron?
We're gonna go with Melvin because I think he had that 1
Three
yard longer.
Melvins. The longest touchdown run of the year belongs to Jonathan Taylor,
Dang it.
but it was an 83-yarder.
What was
Melvin
Melvin's?
Gordon's was 70.
Brady
He's
got lucky.
4th on the list.
70 what?
Only reason I remember that is
70.
because in the watching the Jets versus Colts, the announcers said Jonathan Taylor had the second longest rush of the season. Now he has the first.
I see.
So that's the only reason I remember that.
Justin
remember the exact
Jackson
yards.
has the third longest at 75 yards.
Isn't he the
Somehow.
That was
running
last
back
week, wasn't it?
for the Chargers?
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
That was last week, I think.
Yeah, stole Eckler's touchdown.
That was good for me.
You want to know another? Here's another trivia question: Who has the most touchdowns of all time in a season, outside of quarterbacks?
Assuming Randy
Randy
Moss.
I'm going. Jerry Rice.
Okay, so Jerry Rice, Kobe, what'd you say?
Randy Moss.
Randy Moss, Noah,
Moss, I guess.
Aaron.
I'm gonna go with Zach because I feel like Rice.
I think it
Jerry Rice.
is.
So
I feel
all
like it
wide
is Rice.
receivers, all wide receivers.
Yeah.
It's LaDainian and
Yes, is
Tomlinson.
it running?
Oh,
Tomlinson.
yeah. That
How many do you have?
He had 32, I think. 30
My
something.
gosh.
He had a
Rookie
ton.
numbers.
That's 2 a game, right?
Yeah.
Average? Do they play 16 game seasons then?
Yes, that was 2005, 2006.
Dang.
Where did he play?
Chargers,
Chargers.
and then Jets.
Dang, 2 a
Yeah,
game
oh,
average, bro.
Yeah. No, he had 28. Wait, no. That was just
I
he
got
had
a
28 rushing touchdowns.
I got a trivia question for you.
31 total touchdowns.
Still good.
Who has the biggest balls in the NFL?
Aaron Rodgers, he overinflates them.
I'm gonna say Tom Brady.
No, he
'Cause he has to
underinflates
deflate
them.
He has to. They're so big.
Debo Samuel.
Ooh,
That's what I was thinking. These nuts.
got him.
How was
I
that
got
funny?
a legitimate question that
What?
is kind of funny, or not funny, but it's actually
I'm
requires
expecting
a
to
little bit
bust
of
a
thought.
gut laughing.
This better be
yeah.
funny.
Okay.
God.
So there's a team that's not in the NFC North now that has won a division title more recently than the Detroit Lions have.
Oh, wait, say that one more time.
What team was it? There's a team that's no longer in the NFC North. It used to be the NFC Central. They have won a division title more recently than the Detroit Lions.
Oh,
The Houston Oilers.
they.
Wrong conference.
Oh.
I have no guess because I don't know the conferences.
I should know this. Is it a team that's moved?
You should know this.
Well, they got moved into a different division, but at
No,
one
no,
point
that
they
has
were
moved the city from their city.
no.
No, because I was thinking Rams, but
Hold on, let me look. I need to look at the standings to see
We'll go
which
with the
team I guess.
Saints.
Saints in the NFC Central.
I'm gonna say the Rams.
I said the Rams.
And
Oh, you
what's
did?
Noah's legitimate answer?
We'll go with the Vikings.
They're in the division now.
They're still in the division.
I don't know.
They
The
won more
division.
recently.
I'm in the same boat as Zach.
The answer,
Baltimore.
wrong conference.
Dang. Well, they moved before.
Who was
They were
it?
the Baltimore Colts at one point.
The
Tell me.
answer is a team that is now in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No, I was in the right division. Dang.
They have won a NFC North title.
How
It
the
used to be
hell were they
Central
in the
more
NFC
recently.
North?
Because the conferences were all jacked up. There was one time where the Falcons and the Saints were in a conference with the Rams out in LA or something like that, and then the 49ers.
Okay.
It was weird.
What a trivia question.
Who is
That's
the
a good one.
Okay, here's a question. Who is the fastest player in the NFL this season?
Like, in terms of 40-yard dash times at the combine?
Fastest player in the NFL this season.
Or do you mean the
This
fastest that's been
season.
recorded?
Right.
This season.
Fastest.
Like the fastest run that's been
game,
recorded?
Fastest player in the NFL this season.
You're not helping us.
Well, John Ross ran a 4.2, I think, right?
Yes.
In the combine. That's the fastest I've ever heard of. I remember that was like
We're
a
talking about
record
in
breaker.
games though.
It's not making much.
Played.
Fastest
You're not
player
helping.
in the NFL this season.
It's gonna be something stupid like CMC when he has to poop or something. It's gonna be something
Lamar
stupid
when he has to
because
poop.
he's loading that question.
Answers, Zach?
I think it's interesting, so I'm not going to go with John Ross. I'm going to say, who's been clocked at the fastest? I'm going Daniel Jones.
Okay. Kobe?
I think Melvin Gordon was like clocked at like 21 miles per hour, but I gotta give it to CMC when he has to poop.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Melvin Gordon was a good
go
answer.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's
Oh,
good
that's a
answer.
good guess.
Aaron?
I'm gonna go with who I said because I remember his 40 speed was insane.
John Ross?
So John Ross.
It was Henry Ruggs. He went 156 miles per hour.
Oh.
I told you it was gonna be something.
That was a good one. That was a good. Hey,
Alabama fans in shambles.
this is a pretty interesting stat I just saw though. It's
Fastest.
right, yeah. It's the rushing attempts by running backs. Derrick Henry has 219.
Yep.
Mhm.
Joe Mixon and Najee are tied for second. You know how many they have in one more game?
Probably
190?
198.
150.
Wow. Yeah, that just shows how valuable Derrick Henry
70 more carries in a less game.
Is he really valuable if you run him to the ground? If you try to get him injured?
If he's producing, I guess so.
Hey, at least he didn't hit someone going 156 miles an hour.
I wonder when it will no longer be RB1 in fantasy.
Next week,
Hopefully
probably.
after this week. Cruz's running backs are going to be insane in terms of numbers.
All right. Quick fire. Answer within 10 seconds, okay? When I come
And
to you. Okay.
In order.
Yeah, in order. Well, I'm starting with Zach because he's the first one on my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Give your most bold take with no filter. Zach, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I mean, the Raiders shouldn't have fired John Gruden. I mean,
Okay, on to Kobe.
was he that bad?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Saquon comes back and immediately gets re-injured, proving that the Giants paid him too much money.
Is that really a bold take? Anyway, Noah. 10, 9.
CMC finished with a 1,000-yard rushing season.
How? He's missed 6 games.
That's why it's bold.
Okay.
Fair enough. I guess he's rushing
1,000
400.
1,000-yard rushing and receiving together season.
Oh.
253 yards right now.
2,000 total.
500 each. 500 each.
2,000
Maybe.
total.
Maybe. Aaron? 10.
The Jets win their division.
Ooh. That's a realistic
Jets-
one, I guess.
The
More
Jets
realistic
won
than any of the
6
other ones.
games.
Old take. They're
Yeah.
2-7. It's like Aaron winning the division in fantasy.
They're only like 3 games back.
That's what he
Possible,
said.
but it's not likely. We said
Okay,
a bold
so
take.
what we found out about this is that Zach's a racist and a homophobe. Noah has no idea how
I
stats
traded-
work.
I traded for Seams.
Please don't pee.
Are you pooping?
Kick him from the call.
No. I'm
Anyway.
recording this.
My
Yeah,
phone's
so
about
see-
to die.
CMC's projected stats for the year is 450 rush yards and 350 receiving yards. So what's that, like 900?
How is he going to get that?
700,
though?
800.
How is he going to get that though when he's hurt?
Right now he has 253 rush yards and 217 receiving yards. So it's possible, but it's not likely. There's how many games left? 10?
Yeah.
No?
No.
We're in week 10, so 7.
The real question is Nick Chubb now Kareem Hunt's handcuff?
It's a bold take.
It
Is Dearness Johnson RB2 now
Is Dearness Johnson
after Nick Chubb?
Nick Chubb's handcuff? Yeah, such a hierarchy.
Bold takes.
All right. Now, Zach, who's your Super Bowl pick? To win.
Yeah. Ooh. Honestly, I'm gonna go. I mean, the record just goes to show. I'm taking the Cardinals or the Bucks.
No,
Cardinals or
no,
Bucks?
only one choice. Pick one.
Mm,
I agree with Kobe here.
I'm gonna take the. I'm gonna take the Cardinals.
Cardinals. Okay. Mine is the Rams.
Oh yeah, that's what I should have said. I like the Rams.
No, you are both wrong. I got the Green Bay Packers. Wisconsin up, Cheeseheads.
Fair enough.
Not
Fair
bad
enough.
take.
A revenge bowl.
That's what I'm saying. Aaron
Uh,
Rodgers is gonna win MVP, win the Super Bowl, and he's gonna have his long hair.
And then he's gonna post a dick pic. Noah.
Noah.
Man, if the Rams don't win it, that's going to be just disappointment. I'm going to say a repeat with the Bucks.
That's what I was thinking.
Aaron.
It's gonna be a Chargers and Rams Super Bowl, and the Rams will win it. Battle of LA.
Okay. Faith in the Rams.
Battle of
After
LA
they just got
can be
embarrassed.
LA.
Yeah. A lot of
All
faith
right.
in the Rams.
Well, I think that's a good note to conclude our first episode on with Aaron saying the Chargers are going to make it to the Super Bowl, Zach being a racist, Noah not knowing statistics.